Anyway, sorry I'm late. I went to check. We have to play with a stitch. I think it's kind of fun to play with a stitch at the beginning while Karl does his thing. And then I decided, well, crap, I don't know what stitch I'm going to do. So I did a really quick look. And I thought, well, we haven't done other Nalbinding stitches in a while on the Nalbinding page. If you're not familiar with it, it's www.nalbinding.fi, and you either choose the English flag or you go EN before you do Nalbinding. I will show you. Let's play with the Vendel stitch today. But that's the page there. So number 46, I guess, is the dedicated number for Vendel. But this has got a split in it. You can see right there, she's split the yarn in two, so I had to go quickly get different yarn. Let's see, put that back. Whoop. Let's just turn this everywhere. But first I have to say hi to everybody, and then I thought this yarn is 2-ply. So it'll be easy, or at least 2-ply anyway, so it'll be easier to split. It's 6 degrees. It's actually not too bad. It was a little colder yesterday. I got stuck in convoy driving on the way over here, but convoy driving in the daylight's not so bad. Convoy driving at nighttime would be another thing. But not bad. It was completely fine until you get to about Hemsedal, and then around Hemsedal, from Oslo area, it was completely beautiful weather. And when you get to Hemsedal, it suddenly gets really windy, and which turns snow into ice, and any loose snow was blowing in front of the screen, so there you go. But so it was -3 yesterday when I got here. Now it's 6. And the picture that you see in the thumbnail, I had to, we were filming it for some sort of a project anyway, yesterday, and the snow in Gudvangen had started turning into water or slush. And those two are getting all cozy by the fire, and I'm sitting here trying to film it and hold a light in this direction at some point to try to fill their faces a bit more since they're under roof. But I forgot to clean off the chair that I was sitting on, so I'm sitting in a puddle of water for 2 hours filming them. I was freezing my ass off, and those two were all nice and toasty from sitting under the fire. Thanks, Prue, to put a link up there so you can see what I'll play with today. I love that page, by the way, because I can't remember all this stuff either. I have to go back and, oh yeah, no, that's how it was. At first, I completely forgot that the Vendel stitch is split. So, anyway, I have to say hi to people. Audra's here. Hi, alle sammen, she says. Hello, everybody. And Albert is here as well. Garcia from Holland. Albert is Norwegian. So, Audra is Lithuanian, I believe. Yeah. Let's see. Ashley is here. She had tablet weaving pattern with blue, so that counts. That counts. I'm playing with yellow today, but nope, I have my blue project here. I didn't get much further since yesterday because I'm packing and moving at the same time, and I'll have all kinds of crappy excuses, but literally they're just excuses. So I still have to work on this, my blue outfit, my blue for the month. Yeah, quick backtrap. We decided the stash busting challenge was fun, and we should definitely continue with challenges, so we decided to go with color of the month. So, yay, Maria made it. Maria, you have to do the color of the month challenge now. I have not posted a damn thing about it on Instagram, and I need to get, yeah. I've been too busy for social media lately, so I need to get my shit in gear and do that. But anyway, the idea is last month was brown, so you had to make something with the color brown in it, and it doesn't have to be completely brown. This was my January challenge, so it's obviously got pink in it. But it has to be brown, a little bit of brown. It doesn't have to be a big thing. It can be a small thing. It doesn't even have to be needle binding. So if you're painting, I saw Patricia was quilting, for example. People are sewing outfits. Tablet weaving, so put a little brown in it. But now it's February. So I thought, cold month, cold color, let's go with blue. So if you haven't started, you got plenty of time before the end of the month. Is it a leap year? I don't know. You either have 28 days or you have 30. But blue, something in blue. Even if you're painting, blue. A little bit, not all of it. But for this is a single ply yarn, and to demonstrate something with a split stitch in it is going to be a pain to rip up afterwards, so that's why I'm going with this. Who else is here? Let's see. Kaya's here. Hey, hey. Yeah, or your brother Karl will be here soon. and he can tell you what they were talking about in that photo. He and Rune. Rune unfortunately went home today after work, so we don't get to bug him. Kiwi's here, Arlene is here, and Lindsay is here, Peruda, Susan Youngman in Frankfurt. You're doing wrist warmers in Dalarna Stitch too, in blue and a knit shawl. That's what this one was. This is the one we were playing with last week. It's Dalarna. Ooh, I've been biting fingers. Don't do that. Anyway, it's a nice one. It really hugs. But it's, I love the stitch. It looks like basket weaving in a way compared to the other ones. Oh, and Kiwi, if you have not tried Dalarna, you definitely should. We played with it a little bit last week if you want to see what it looks like. It's easy. It's just one mistake away from Oslo. And Heidi Lyseth is here. I gave your brother a hug after the cold, because I thought they would be cold sitting out on that bench while filming, but actually no, they had the toasty fire. I was the one that was freezing. I need the hug. Let's see. Oh, there's lots to catch up on. You guys are chatty today. I like it. How many layers, Keith says, how many layers do you wear to stay comfy in the Viking village in the winter? Okay, so a little bit of a wrong person to ask because I'm from Duluth, Minnesota, which is frigid compared to here. It's actually colder there, and you got a lot of wind chills. So I'm actually, okay, I have my hood on. Usually I will have a cowl underneath, the needle binding one that I wear a lot. Don't have it on today. Wool underdress. This is actually, if you know the Norwegian bunad, that's what this is. It's vodmel. That one in wool. And sometimes you wear pants underneath that or a shirt underneath that, but I just have socks underneath. I don't have extra pants on today or anything because it was actually quite warm. But a lot of the Vikings here will have long underwear underneath as well. And wool socks, thick wool socks. If you can't see your socks, then put on some, you don't have to have null-bound socks if they can't see it. So the thickest woolest socks you have. But, yep, so wool. And the wrist warmers is a good one. There's no Viking find on wrist warmers, but having your pulse points covered is a big one. You can even make leg warmers to put underneath too. And a hat, cover those ears. And fur. And the easiest thing of all is the cloak. You can just take a blanket, use any woolen blanket from Kid Interior that has a decent pattern, weave to it that can, a passable pattern, and just put that around you as well. And a little cloak pin. And that'll keep you warm as well. Karl has to have a hat on in the summer too. For some reason, it keeps him cool in the summer and hot in the winter. We'll have to ask him the logic behind that. Let's see. Oh, One Polished Monkey. Good morning. I like that name. One Polished Monkey. And Anne Moreau is here. Hello. Ann Taylor is here as well. We got Anna Taylor. Sorry, I said Anna Taylor. Or Ann. Good morning from Arizona, where it's sunny and 51 degrees Fahrenheit or 10 degrees Celsius. Remember those temperatures. Annette O'Connor is here. She started a blue-green mix wrist warmers yesterday. So there's 3 of us doing wrist warmers. Anne Moreau, no blue project for me. A friend broke a shoulder, so now I'm knitting her a brown sweater. Oops, 1 month late for the color. Well, that's okay. So you got the color in there. You can just put 1 stitch in blue and that'll count. A little embroidery or something on it. But that's nice of you to be making a sweater, though, for the one who broke the shoulder. They'll be nice and warm. That's a lot of work, too, actually. And Taylor said, we are half a valley from the game location tomorrow. We have been avoiding that half of the valley for the last week. It's madness here. I prefer superb owls. Aha! Superb owls. I gotta check that one out. Maria says, I've used a bunch of green in January, and now I'm making a test pattern for a commission hat that I needed to check usage for. Green? Well, you like to go against the grain. No. I'm kind of curious to hear more about the pattern that you're making. If you didn't know, Maria Lind Heel has, it's spelled actually H-E-E-L like heel, but she's from Denmark. She writes a lot of patterns and little pamphlet form, and I think you can download some of them as PDFs now, if I'm not mistaken, and she offers them in a chunk of different languages. She also hosts the advent calendar in the Nalbinding advent calendar. If you haven't seen that, you should check it out, and I'm sure Peruta or Maria can put a link in there so you can find it. They're really good. Also, I do have patterns, but I left mine on Instagram, so it's really, everybody wants them in paper form or downloadable, and I don't have that, so you have to abuse Maria. They don't cost that much either, actually. It's a pretty good price. But since I mentioned the color stash busting, says Maria, I will look for something blue afterwards. Doesn't have to be 100% blue, you know. It doesn't matter which shade of blue it is either. Just a little bit of blue, any excuse to use up stash. It doesn't even have to be used stash, actually. If you really want to go out and buy new yarn so that you have stash to bust at the end of the year, that's okay too. Reprude is making a gray and black spiraled hat for a friend. I'm making it enormous so it can be felted down. And nothing blue yet for Lindsay. No, you'll get there though. We got lots of time. The spiral is so fun. Maybe we should do that next week, actually, some spiral. Because it makes everything seem like it's going super faster. Green is kind of blue, writes Maria, and I agree with her. It is actually. It's in the same family. Okay, so Vendel stitch. So how did you guys spend your week, by the way? Me, I sat in a convoy again for the second time in 2 weeks. Actually, I don't mind convoy driving as long as it's light outside and not dark. Okay, so I used super thick yarn for this, but I think this one I'd probably use a bit thinner. But the important thing is that it was easy to split. So we'll turn the camera down and we can see the reindeer fur infested blanket. There. I was going to use this one, but then I realized it wasn't 2-ply, so I'll take that away. Or then I didn't realize I was supposed to split the yarn. Ah, thank you. Peruta's got it up there if you want to check Maria's patterns in the advent calendar. I would normally use a thicker needle for this, but I need to pierce it, the wool, so I'm going to do that. This is Tyk Ull from, which is Tykk, and then Ull, ULL. I forget who makes Tyk Ull, and I don't know if they sell it anymore, but basically it translates to thick wool. So for this we need 3 loops. So I just start the way I normally do. The knot, and then I got 1, but I need 2 more, so we'll go under everything. 1. I always start this way. If it's too thick for the stitch I'm using, I can just cut the start away after. And 1 more. So now I have 3, if you can see it there. 1, 2, 3, and the yarn forward. So for this one, she takes all 3 from underneath, but this last one, she splits it in 2. That's it. And then turns and goes under. So all those stitches you can do in the Finnish family, you know, Oslo and Mom and Broden, etc., you can also do half, and that would be splitting. So there we go, 1, and then 2, and there's the third one, but it's actually 2.5, so you split it. Now you see why it's easier to use plied wool, because it's easier to split. Also because I probably won't finish whatever I'm doing in this yarn. I'll use it for something else, so I want to rip it up later, and it would be pain in the butt to unpick something that had split. 1 in Lopi. 1, 2, and split the third. And then you go back through. I hope I'm doing that right. I think I am. We had a lot of Vikings that like to do Vendel period. Sometimes people take their Viking they go really into their Viking reenactment and not only just choose to be a Viking, but to reenact a certain period. Something like that. Oh, I should stop biting my fingernails in cold weather. Anyway, so a lot of them go with Vendel. It has a different look. And then, of course, they want to make the socks in the Vendel stitch. I have no idea if the Vendel stitch has anything to do with the Viking period. I'm assuming not. Why does that look huge? But there was a find in that area, apparently. There. That looked a little bit... Oh, I messed something up there. Because this should be the end loop. I'm undoing it. When in doubt, undo it. Look at that. I got 3 stitches in and I already screwed it up. Have anybody ever made anything with this stitch before? Vendel, V-E-N-D-E-L. I don't think I've ever made anything more than a sample. I see where I went wrong. This was supposed to go under. There. It's more expensive to start doing Vendel. Oh, is it really? Is it? Why is that actually? You might have written it in there. I just saw what flashed on the screen. I know there's some people in the Oslo area that go to the Midgard Museum that do Vendel. 1, 2. I see I pulled reindeer fur through here. I should really find a blanket that doesn't have reindeer hair all over it. Okay, 1, 2 and a half. It's hard to do this through the phone. I think you had the hat you sent me is in the middle. You're right, Ashley. It is. That's right. We did, I think it was the 1 year, when we hit 1 year on YouTube, or maybe it was a certain amount of followers on Instagram. I don't know. But we did a little contest. That's right. And Ashley won. That's right. That was in Vendel. That's got to be the only thing I did making it. And it was made with the Malabrigo yarn, which is the same yarn as Karl's blue hat, but it was a nice brownish color. Different tones of browns and a little bit of yellow, hints of yellow and green in it. That was in Vendel. You're right. That's also a 2-ply yarn. I believe it's Malabrigo. So it was easier to split. Let's see. Maria wrote something. And we made Anna, oh crap, what's her last name again? I forgot her last name again, so I don't want to say it wrong. But Anna and Maria, they've done quite a few projects together. Anyway, she said that they made a booklet with Vendel and telemark stitch. And then, let's see, Lindsay asked, what is the advantage of doing a stitch that splits the yarn? And Maria writes, Lindsay, not an advantage of such, but it creates a different pattern. I was just wondering about that. Yeah, it is Anne Robin. Okay, I remembered correctly. Good. I didn't want to get it wrong. She does a lot of really great needle binding too, by the way. So Maria is in the, if you haven't met her before, she is in the needle binding Facebook group, and she is also listed as an expert because Kelsey thought we should be experts. But Maria is actually the brain behind the needle binding groups on Facebook. She set them up in different languages too, and has done a lot of demographic research on it. All right, there. So 2.5, and then go back through the first one. Should we see what the texture is? I could see it pretty well on that yellow yarn. It looked like a cotton kind of cord that Sana was doing in her video. You could definitely see that it was split, but I'm wondering what it looks like with wool. Oh my God, it's hard to pull this through with this thin needle and thick yarn. Stretch. There's my start. Doesn't look great, but we can just cut that away. I'll show you that later too, by the way. So there, you can see the split. Right there's a split. I don't know if the other ones are as visible, but it's kind of making a cool pattern. So I was going to use this yarn for something. You can cut this with penalty free if you didn't know, or you can sit there and try to pick it out to save yarn, but let's face it, I bought this on sale, so you can just cut and then pick out anything loose. Hey, you want to say hi, Anders? Anders the blacksmith?
Cozy sounds.
You want to make some cozy sounds? Come here a minute. You got to sit down though, so we don't get to see that you're in workwear. Ah, it's an Anders. Well, now you're too tall. You're growing your hair out. You're starting to look more like Jesus now.
I like
To be sharp, but this one unfortunately is sharp. Yep. Anyway, I seem to have one extra. There, it's because of the split that was hard. So there you go. Now it looks like I had this beautiful start in the beginning. So it's easier for me to start like that, but I can always cut it off if it didn't look good. The under sweater is done, actually. We were going to make the sleeves longer because he wanted to have the sleeves longer on it and put thumb holes in it so he could wear it like that underneath. And then he wanted the neck taller with maybe a zipper, not a zipper, but a split so that he could lift it up and warm his face with it too if need be. And then he wanted it extra long and put a split on the side. But as it got colder, he suddenly didn't really care about those things anymore. But it's still extra long, but it's not split. And the sleeves are extra long and they're not split. And the collar, I think, is extra long. So it is done, actually. There's a picture of it from a while back. I had a running challenge with Ann Decker, Anne-Marie Decker, to see if she could finish her second sock before I finished the sweater, because she had this wonderful sock, but like, oh, you can't just have one, you have to have two. I was teasing her. No, she finished me. Not only that, but she kicked my butt by several months. That blacksmith sweater, I think, almost took 2 years. Well, actually, a good 3 months of it was due to the pandemic because I have to have him try it on all the time. Let's see, I can move this to the middle. They were wondering if, oh, it's Karl. They were wondering if Anders' sweater ever got done, but it did. What you up to, Karl?
Didn't you spend about 2 weeks bragging about that as soon as it was done?
That sweater is an absolute, what is it, confirmation that I'm not that quick sometimes. Sometimes I just can't be asked to finish it. I think I did a bunch of other stuff in between. Anyway, so that's what the stitch is looking like. And that's the front side, which basically means the side facing me when I needle bind. And this is the back side. Not really much of a difference. This is the side facing away from me. A little bit. But in the end, you're the one who decides what's actually the front and back, because you're the artist. So I'll catch up on chat and we'll say hi to you. Oop, there you are. And then we'll lift it up. So what are you and Rune getting so cozy by the fire in the picture? Did you see which one I used? What were you talking about? You guys looked very engrossed.
We were talking about Håkon the Good.
You told that story here before.
Maybe.
Maybe. But I gotta ask, stupid question for Karl. If you have more stupid Viking questions, it's kind of fun to, or really good Viking questions, and try to stump them. So Karl, did Vikings have adoptions, or what did they do with unwanted pregnancies?
Generally, with an unwanted pregnancy,
I'm not pregnant.
Put the baby in the woods and let whatever happens.
Mm.
You can think of it as post-birth abortion.
Yeah. Not very nice.
Adoptions in that sense, no, not so much. They have a system of fostering kids, but that is generally basically part of an alliance. Or as a show of bond between somebody and somebody else. Generally, somebody of lower status than yourself would be raising your kids for you. Because if not, the kids will just be spoiled. If you are a rich and wealthy farmer or warrior or king or whatever, so you never have to work a day more in your life. You have a good farm and you have people to run your farm for you, then you should not raise your kid in this lifestyle, because then he will be soft and useless by a Viking standard. So it's much better to have him being raised by somebody who actually has to work for a living. So if you are this rich farmer, have a warrior or a farmer who actually has to work raise your kid, because then he understands that silver doesn't grow on trees and you actually have to work for it.
And then, yeah, we did say adoption. I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention. You were telling the story about Håkon the Good, though, and that involved an adoption, did it not?
Well, it's not really an adoption, because his father is still alive, and he is still, both his father and his mother is still alive at this point.
Yeah.
And they're just sending him to England to prove a point. And that point being that the English king is of lower status than the Norwegian king.
Did we tell this story on YouTube? Did you tell this?
I
Not we.
don't
When I
think
say
so.
we, I mean you. Oh, we might have to tell. Okay, let me catch up on chat. Then you're telling a story. We got lots of time. Because I was ignoring chat while playing with yarn. And where was I at? Brutus says I'm making a gray and black spiral. Oh yeah, with spiraled hat. We should do spiral next week. I think maybe that would be a fun one to show. How to spiral either round start or flat start. Albert says it's more expensive to start doing Vandal. Yeah, that's right. I was wondering about that too. Vandal reenactment. Is that? Do you know what the difference is between that and clothing? That's a really good question for you, considering you don't do textiles. But
The Vandal period is what the Swedish call the period right before the Viking Age. In Norway, it's called Folkevandringstid, or migration period. And in Denmark, I believe it's called Merovingian period, because the Merovingian dynasty is running France at this time, and the Danish are trading a lot with them. So it's basically archaeological terms for what you find. And the Swedish find these really rich graves at, I believe the place is called Vandal, where you have the Vandal helmets and the Vandal graves. And I have just named the entire period after the place. And it's like, I don't think there is a big difference between Vandal era and Viking era, except that they are putting a little bit less effort into their burial routines in the Viking Age than they did in the Vandal period. So Vandal migration or Merovingian time, same thing, different countries. But you have the really rich grave finds like Sutton Hoo in England and the Vandal graves in Sweden and the Snortemo in Norway are all from this period. So, strictly speaking, before the Viking Age. But the idea of the Viking Age starting in 793 is a very British concept. It starts for them, in a way, in 793. Because the first major attack, some people have been killed by Vikings before this time. But the first major attack is the attack at the monastery of Lindisfarne in 793, so the English kind of chooses that point to define the Viking Age beginning. But culturally speaking, the people who are buried at Salame by Estonia and the Merovingians and Danish and or the Swedish Vandals or the Norwegian culture around Snortemo is not that different from Vikings. It's just a matter of scale.
That, like, I was wondering about that stitch too, but I'm gonna have to ask Anna or somebody, or maybe even just read on the page. I don't know that the Vendel stitch that we were doing has anything to do with the Vendel period, but
It's again,
or how it got its name.
It's a place. But if they call it Vendel and it doesn't
It's
have
probably
to do...
because it's a place, yeah, that
Yeah.
it's probably named after the place and not the period.
No, but the place is central for the period. I
Oh,
don't
okay.
know of...
I didn't know that.
I don't know of anything else from... Obviously, they might have found something from later in the same area.
Yeah.
But then it would be extremely confusing for normal people to just call it Vandal, because that's also the name of the time period. So then you should call it something else. You should call it
Oh, it's got other names.
Swedish 6x8 or...
Swedish 6x. No, or 2.5. No, I actually didn't know anything about that. I wonder what she writes on here, because it definitely would have another name. It's just a name given for identify. Yeah, Vendel, Uppland, Sweden, Uppland area in Sweden. And there's the Hansen notation, big O, little o dash or slash U, which is the turn, and then a big U and two big O's and an F1. So I guess you have to do F1. And the little O and the U in the code is where you split the yarn with a needle, so I would call that like a half. But she doesn't actually have any more information written on it. And there's a little sample of the front and back. But that would be a good one to ask. Tomorrow, Ann Decker has Zoom. I could ask her when I drive home. Tell me about Vendel. Where did it get the name, and does it have anything to do with the period? But okay, chat. Torben's here. Karin's here. The little one is here too. How many teeth does he have now? The little one, I'm wondering. It's important. And do they all work? Ow, I actually hurt myself. Let's see. Peruta says, working with black yarn at night is a pain in the arse. Oh, wait till you get 50-year-old eyes, too. It gets even worse. No, if somebody makes you something with black yarn, knit, crochet, or needle bound, even embroidery, they really like you. Notice none of your stuff is black. No, because you're sitting there, I mean, no lack of, I mean, you can have as much light as you want and strongest glasses and you still can't see the damn thing.
No, but because every second textile lady complains every time they see something black on a Viking.
Yep.
So it's not a good color to wear around her.
Not around Viking age anyway, no. Because it's a highly debatable thing, but you can't plant dye black. And some say, oh, but if you do oak nuts in an iron pot, that'll go black. Nope, it'll go dark gray. But it won't be a true black. And you can actually get, I think it's oak moss in an iron pot, but you can get black with lichen or a mushroom dye, but we don't have evidence, I don't think they've found any evidence that it was dyed with mushrooms in the Viking age, that they were using mushrooms to dye with. But, you know, again, what they found is so little. So, and Vikings, we do know were, I'm going Norglish here, very glad in, no, they really liked color. They really liked a lot of color. Veldig glad I farge. So, what do you think about that?
It's either you have finds of something or you don't have finds of something. That's basically the long and the short of it. To be devil's advocate a little bit.
Yeah.
If black is possible to achieve, but very, very difficult, that would make it more attractive, not less attractive.
Yeah, because it's harder to get.
It would be high status.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to get.
So there you have
It's
the
like,
black debate on Viking clothing.
I don't think most people consider diamonds to be particularly pretty. They look like broken glass. But because they are valuable, they are attractive.
Let's see. More things. Yeah, so I feel your pain about the black yarn, by the way. That's not for the faint of heart. I did one hat with that, and it wasn't even black. It was a really dark gray. It's in the shop. I think that thing took me forever to make. That one's hand-spun yarn, too. Maria says I give her way too much credit. No, 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 you did a lot more than I do. I just sit there and prove that I'm human and make mistakes. I'm capable of a lot, but I'm capable of a lot of mistakes, too. Let's see. Kiwi is working on a sweater in green too, and now starting on the wrist cuffs, so getting close to done. You made the most beautiful sweater, and it, I want to call it like a bicycle sweater from the, I don't know, it's got ruffled sleeves anyway. It's probably one of the most well reacted to things on the Needle Binding Facebook group anyway. So if you haven't seen it, go, you should write your Instagram in there, but people need to go and see that thing. It's awesome. And you even wrote down the pattern for it, which was great. Are you making it the same pattern, or are you doing a different one when you make this sweater? That thing fit her like a glove, which is hard to do with needle binding because it doesn't stretch this way. It only stretches this way. For the most part, anyway. I shouldn't say only. But anyways, I'm curious, are you doing the same one? Or same pattern, or are you going to do something different? Sorry, this is hard to pull through. Roger's here, soft and useless by Viking standards. He likes your wording on things, by the way. Rita said, did you see the link from Emil at the Swedish Museum with information about the new fragment from a sock in Sweden? No! Link. I need to see that. Oh, and Prue to put up Anders' his Instagram link. If you're not following, you probably should, so he can get 201,000 or whatever he's at now. Torben says, Carl, I found some old pictures from a party of at my place, early 2000s, and you had short hair and no beard. I have a photo of that! You stupidly put it on Facebook once, and I found it. I think it's like way, way back or something. And you're sitting there with an iced coffee. How old? What time when did you start growing a beard? You should see him. You don't even recognize him.
I think I didn't have much of a beard when I started working here in 2017.
Yeah?
So this is about 6 years.
No, you had the stubble,
growth.
though. I saw it in an earlier picture, but, I mean, completely shaven with like a math teacher shirt on.
I would say that would be some point in 2017, maybe 2016.
Really? So you didn't wear a beard ever before then?
No, yes, I did, but I don't shave when I'm a Viking.
No, but
But at that point, I hadn't been a Viking for a while.
you got to keep the Gandalf
And
beard on.
the job I had right before I was a Viking was in the tourist information in Selje, where you probably should look pretty clean shaven. And right before that, I was a grave digger. And the grave digger who looks like this,
Back off, ladies. He's mine. Sorry.
that you probably want to avoid.
How did you get a job being a grave digger, by the way?
You,
Grave digger to Viking age. You really didn't make much of a stretch there, did you? One grave to another.
I'm trying to be an inverse archaeologist. While I dig up the bodies, I just try to bury them.
One moment. There. Torben says there aren't enough band-aids to check how many teeth his kid has. He just consumed that iced coffee in one gulp. Him or your kid? Because I don't think you want your... No, it was Karl and his addiction. Look how many coffee... 3 out of 5 coffee beans. And how many of these do you drink a day?
It varies. If it's cold, maybe as little as 4 to 6.
I'm surprised you're not bouncing off
If
the
it
walls.
is warm, maybe as many as 12 to 14.
Yeah? Oh, God.
Temperature dependent.
Lindsay says, I knit and crochet stuffed animals for new babies in our family with eyes crocheted out of black embroidery thread, and it takes as long to make the eyes as the animal. I believe you. I've done the ones where you kind of embroider on top of it and still you can't. Ugh. No, I'm not good. PJ's here. Hello. Garcia says, were there any Viking crowns found?
Crowns.
Okay, well, just to throw one out there as to, I don't know what exactly, you can elaborate on that. You know the crowns that the Folk Museum likes using around here that look like the one Lisa made, you know, the big tall ones with the things dangling off the top?
No.
No? It's very Norwegian one for traditional costumes, but not Viking, apparently.
I don't know when that comes into play, the crown as a symbol of royalty. It might be at around that time, but I don't think the Vikings did.
Ivor the Boneless gets a crown, I think, in the Vikings TV series, so it's got to be correct.
Yeah, the Vikings TV series. That weighs nothing because I never bother to check anything before I just go ahead and do it.
So no hot air balloons, huh? But crowns, when's the earliest you've noticed of a crown in Norway?
That's the problem, because the depictions of, for the most part, medieval and later. And then you will often see, for instance, Saint Olav depicted with a crown, but he almost certainly didn't have one.
I'm counting 1, 2 and a half. Starting row 2 now. That's a good question, though. That's something for you to Google. I think we might have stumped you. That's one stump today. You're getting old now.
Because it's often translated when you talk about the Romans, when Mark Antony is offering Caesar a crown. I believe the original text says something like diadem. So it's not a crown. I don't think they exist yet at this time, but that's also 1,000 years before the Viking Age.
Do you think they would have maybe gone that far south and said, hey, that guy was wearing a crown, I want one too?
No, I don't
They all bow down to the guy in the crown.
I don't see why they would want it, because you have other ways of showing that you are in charge. So, Håkon the Good specifically has a golden helmet, for instance. And if you're wearing a golden helmet, you're not wearing a crown. At least not at the same time.
Yeah. The Sutton Hoo helmet is a crown of sorts. That thing is awesome.
It's a very nice helmet,
with the
but
garnets
it's not
around
a crown.
the eyes. No, it's not, but it that is an impressive helmet.
But also, remember how militaristic this society is.
Yeah.
If you have a really nice helmet, like the Sutton Hoo or...
just thinking with the way that thing was decorated, it might as well have been a crown.
That's the point, because
Yeah.
if you have that, you don't need a crown.
No.
And the idea of taking off your really good head protection just to have a symbol on your head that says, strike here if you want to be king, is maybe not a good idea. I might be wrong about this, but the idea of a crown seems somewhat antithetical in opposition to the Vikings' basically way of leadership and way of being a boss.
Do you think maybe the Sutton Hoo helmet was because it was so much design and everything all around the whole thing, all this detail and everything, but a crown would just be a one piece of metal instead the whole thing, so it was maybe a cost of financial.
Well, it shows authority, it shows leadership.
I'm making stuff up, by the way.
But I don't think you really needed a symbol for that in the Viking Age, because if you are near enough to the king that you are going, there is supposed to be a king somewhere in this room, which one of you bastards is the king? If you don't know that already, you probably shouldn't be there.
And wouldn't you think the sword would be more a way to show off your importance rather than the...
Not really, because there was an enormous amount of nice swords in the Viking Age. 3,500 swords from Norway alone. Then you have ring swords and you have Ulfbert swords that also you find in way too many exemplars for them to be a particular sign of status. Well, they are a sign of status, but they are not necessarily a sign that you are a king. So, take Norway on an average day in the Viking Age. You would have a king, at least two, sometimes only one. Well, if one of the jarls is acting as king, then you only have two jarls. Then you only have one jarl, but you have the jarl of Lade and the jarl of Møre. Then you have a lot of hersir, which is basically people who are powerful enough to push people around. And these people would also sometimes be very, very rich. And I don't know of any law texts from the Viking Age that basically says you can only wear this if you are that. You can only go around like this if you are that, type of thing. That comes later in the medieval times. But in the Viking Age, if you are near enough to any of the Viking kings that you see them, then you already know them by reputation, or you've been introduced to them, so you know that they are king. They don't really have to wave their authority in your face.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something completely different.
No,
Okay.
I was not going to say anything different. What did you think I was going to say?
Something Charlotte would like. That's all. So, by the way, PJ says can't Nalbind at the moment because is working on their book instead. Which I have to, by the way, PJ Lightning's on Amazon. You can look it up anyway. That's a good excuse, by the way. It's a fantasy book too, if I remember correctly. So you'll have to let us know when that comes out, and then of course what the title is, so we can all find it. Because I have to start reading again, by the way. I'm too busy needle binding, so I don't have time to read. Although actually right now I'm spending more time going through everything in my house of 23 years, and I'm trying to move to Gudvangen every week, so I'm not getting too much done in either category right now. The idea is that I get it all moved by June when school is out. So we shall see. Thank you so much, Karin. The bicycle sweater is rather unpractical, so I'm making a bit more normal one now, says Kiwi. I'm kind of curious to see, but boy, that thing is, I don't care how impractical it is, it looks amazing. So, Roger says, is it possible that the Vikings acquired crowns from raids on the monasteries? That's actually a really good question.
We are still talking about royal crowns.
Well, you can decipher that as what you want. He just said he said crowns. How would you like to decipher that?
If we are talking about a royal crown, I can't see why it would be in a monastery. That would be like... No, I don't think so. If I'm understanding the question correctly, the best way to get a crown is to take it off the head of a king, or a prince, or a princess, or something like that. And on a rare occasions, the Vikings actually have the opportunity to do that, but that is pretty rare. And I believe that other cultures at this time used the crowns. I seem to remember something about the coronation of the Holy Roman Empire, and that would be in or around the mid-Viking age. So Otto the First, maybe one of these guys. So they probably had a crown. They probably didn't wear it day to day because these guys are also warriors, but they would have it for special occasions. But I don't think the Vikings ever get close enough to a Holy Roman Emperor to basically run away with his head garments.
Okay, I've definitely done this stitch before because it's starting to feel more familiar in my hand now. I was taking it off and splitting the third one in the same way go and then turning. But yeah, that hat is on Instagram, by the way, the one that Ashley won. It's pretty far down though, and it's a multi-toned brown. But yeah, this is the emotion of this is starting to feel familiar again. Needle binding is like riding a bike. Even if you haven't done it for a while, it's somehow innate at some point. You just remember how to do it. But there was a follow-up question Anne had, which is good. Anne Moreau had, what did kings use and wear then as a way to identify or separate themselves as from the others? Leader of the pack.
They would probably have the nicest equipment in the room. But that is kind of their problem. The king would be the richest man in the room, most likely, unless he's super nice and he just accepts that somebody else is better dressed and has more nice stuff than him. But I don't think they often would have a need to basically show off. They are not doing the procession thing, and they are not sitting at their veranda waving at the parade going by. So
You know, like you see the big line
there
up
is
in the...
at least one story from the sagas that indicates that they do absolutely nothing to distinguish themselves. In the Battle of Hjørungavåg, the Jomsvikings are attacking Håkon Sigurdsson Jarl. Håkon Sigurdsson Jarl beats them and he decides to execute all of his prisoners. So he has them tied up to they're sitting on a log, and he has a guy with an axe just walking down the line chopping their heads off.
Oh, what a nice person he is.
And one of these young Jomsvikings have really long, nice hair. And the guy who's about to chop his head off says, can somebody pull the hair out of the way so I can hit the neck? And somebody takes his hair and pulls it towards them. And just as the axe starts to swing, this guy just jerks his head back. So the hands of the other guy is cut off. And Vikings have a weird sense of humor, so I find this to be the most hilarious thing I've ever seen. And Håkon Jarl walks up to this prisoner and says, would you be interested in mercy? And he basically says, I'm not asking for mercy, and by the way, who the hell are you?
Okay.
So he doesn't know that the guy who is offering him mercy is the actual leader. Well, he's the acting king of Norway. He's a jarl, but he's a jarl who is at war with Denmark. And the king who is supposed to be above him is the Danish king. So these guys are basically fighting on behalf of Denmark to get Norway back into the fold. And Håkon Jarl answers something like, well, I'm Håkon Sigurdsson Jarl, I'm the only guy who matters around here. And this guy says, well, okay, in that case, I wouldn't mind being shown mercy. That would be nice. And then he's released, and then they execute the rest of them.
Oh, what a morbid story.
Jomsvikings?
Yeah.
I wouldn't keep them around.
No. Jomsviking, that's another thing too. Is that from, they guesstimate that it's from Volin, Poland?
Yeah, Jomsborg.
Volin with a W?
The problem with the Jomsvikings is that their saga is written so light that it is considered unreliable. And I are just mentioned briefly in other sagas like this one. What seems to be the case, and big caveats here, is that they are a warrior brotherhood, like a precursor of their pagan warrior brotherhood. So like a pagan and earlier version of the Knights Templars and the Knights Hospitallers, something like that. They seem to be mostly interested in money but they are generally pagan. And you can hire them to fight your battles. Or you can get them drunk and get them to swear to fight your battles like the Danish king did.
Your sister says, by the way, very interesting topic and thoughts on the crowns, by the way. She thinks that the crowns and crownings maybe came into play in the medieval times around these parts, Norway, or so that she's heard or read somewhere. But, I never thought about crowns as being a topic, but actually it's been really quite interesting.
That sounds about right, because it is so ingrained in our idea of kingship that the king is the guy who wears the crown,
Yeah.
that basically when somebody makes a drawing of a king, he will always have the crown. So the idea of kings that don't wear crowns and more nondescript kings, even though our king today is not wearing a crown particularly often.
Not often, no.
I don't think I've ever seen him with a crown. I'm
I
guessing.
was just going to say, the only thing I see him is the big chain thing around the necks now.
I'm guessing that he probably had the crown on his head during his coronation, but I don't know if he's put it on afterwards, like ever.
I don't think I've ever seen it. I've only been in the country for 25 years, but I don't think I've ever seen that. Let's see, I should get through. Torben says, did the Viking kings use horned helmets? That's another topic for debate too.
I'm tempted to say that if anybody did in the Viking Age, it would be kings and generals.
Yeah.
A lot of Viking reenactors, that's the one thing they are fanatical about. The Vikings never wear horns on their helmets.
But it turns out they may have.
I honestly don't think they did. But I would say that there is more evidence for horned helmets than for a lot of other things. Because you have depictions from the Viking Age that really look like a horned helmet. The reason I don't think they did is because if they had done that, then their opponents would have mentioned it.
Handlebars.
There is some good reasons to distinguish, if you're a leader of men on the battlefield, there are some very good reasons to distinguish yourself. Remember, this is before snipers. It's not like the enemy will just all of a sudden blow your head off if you turn out to be the leader. The leader should be visible. And at the Battle of Hastings, the Normans almost loses because they think William the Conqueror is dead. So the only thing William the Conqueror can do to basically save the morale of his men is to take off his helmet so they can see his face and then ride around and going, I'm alive and we will win. I'm alive and we will win. So they get their spirits back and go back into fighting. But the argument against horns is that it is unpractical. And yeah, I see that. If you're fighting in close combat, it's unpractical. But so is the horsehair comb of a Roman centurion. It's very impractical.
Not if you want to sweep a floor.
You are a centurion. You are leading 80 legionnaires and possibly 20 slaves. Just ignore the slaves for the purpose of this, but you have the 80 legionnaires that has one job: follow you into battle. They have helmets with a small area of vision. The battlefield is noisy as all hell and extremely confusing. And people keep trying to kill you, which is also not good for your situational awareness. But if you see this horsehair comb, and I also think it's no coincidence that the centurions, the actual line commanders, have a comb that goes this way, while the legatus and the legion commanders have combs that go this way. Because the centurion is supposed to be in front of you. He's leading from the front. He's the sergeant, to use the modern term for this kind of leadership. So you need to know where he is. You have just one job, and that is to follow that guy no matter where he's going. And you could achieve the same thing with horns, obviously. So it's unpractical, yes, but at least know your men can see you and they follow you into the enemy formation. I honestly don't think they did, because if they had done that, then the Anglo-Saxon chronicles would be full of references to it. The man who dresses like a cow is attacking us again.
Moo. I was gonna say, Max is here, by the way. Apologizes for being late. No. These things are left up, so you can always go back and join later. Wants to know what stitch we're using, so I will show you in a sec. It was Vendel. Vendel was the one to play with today. And we talked about whether that has anything to do with Viking and blah, 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 blah. I have no idea. And then Charlotte's here says, also sorry for being late. No, but we did innuendo. Well, there was an innuendo earlier and we thought of you. Just want you to know that. Anna says, let's see. The also stitch to start, too, like Omani. There was mention of Omani stitch earlier. And one of these days, one of these Saturdays, I'm going to have a little bit more prep time ready, and I'll show you the Omani stitch again. I tried to show it earlier. I think it was this summer, and it's like one out of every 3 starts on the Omani stitch will go wrong for me, and I'll have to start all over again. And sure enough, I did it twice perfectly before YouTube, then I get on YouTube and then screw up the start. But then I was able to show how you could piggyback off of an existing chain if you got it before. Anyway, so that one I'll have to show you. It's, and then Peruta wants to know if that's why Anders is growing his hair. By the way, probably it was a little bit further back in conversation though.
In case of decapitation, you mean?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Could be. It's got to be a little bit longer though. He's only got to like the wispy hair thing. So he's also growing a goatee, so maybe that's the other thing. You could do it.
Yeah, but that would be counterproductive if you want to cut my neck.
No. Yeah, that's true. Torben says, an England's king guard struts around with black hair on their heads.
Yeah.
And then let's see one other thing, because we're actually right at the end here. This went fast. Anne says, took some photos while I was starting, and I will post them on Facebook group when you have. Definitely, I have to get my butt back into Facebook again soon. I've been busy with moving and other things that I haven't. I have no excuse. I think I just fell out of practice at Christmas time and haven't gotten back into it yet. But I need to, because there's so much I'm missing, and there's so much eye candy in the needle binding group. It's called Nalbinding if you haven't been in there, though, but the fact that you're on this YouTube means you're probably in there, because it's one of the few places I post. Let's see, and Max says, have you tried the Vorsta stitch? No, it's similar to Vendel, except you don't have to split the loop. No, then maybe we'll have to try that one. Kaya says also, but did you guys watch the Vinland Saga, by the way? Did we watch that? I think we forgot all about it.
I haven't seen it.
We might need to do that. Add it to the list. We haven't reviewed bad Viking movies in a while either.
Do we have to go back on that stream?
Well, when Rune is here, we do, because Rune likes them. He thinks they're entertaining, and you, on the other hand, start crying about everything. The only one I think you didn't cry much on was the Last Kingdom.
Oh, that sucks balls too. It just sucks. It's like when you have watched an episode or 2 of Vikings, everything else is perfect by comparison. Because these people, it's like they don't know that Google exists. So just a very simple thing, like which way you sit when you row a Viking ship. Fuck, they have no Google, and they are living in somewhere where they have no water. So, if that series was made by a bunch of actual Bedouins from the central Sahara, I would still think they should have done a better job.
I think we have to watch the Vinland Saga and see how that went. It's just, it's so funny to watch you react. Okay, so before we go, I have to show the, how far we did on the Vendel stitch here. I used thick yarn so it would show it better. So there you got it. That is 1, 2, 3, 4 rows. There was my start. Always my start rows. Actually, it's pretty decent. Usually my bottom stitch, especially in the start, is a little bit bigger here, my bottom row. But there you can see, this is the right side, meaning like I said, the technical right side, so it's facing you. And you can see, let's see, the splits. Where is it? There's a split, and there's a split. But it does make it a bit more dense. But I think, yeah, as Marie says, the only benefit or the advantage of the split would just be for looks. It does have kind of a different look to it. And this is listed under the other stitches on the Sauna's webpage, nylock.fi. And this is the technical wrong side. I do notice that the ridge is a bit more raised here on there. And then, of course, I have a hard time splicing split yarns, so I would just weave that under after. It came kind of undone as I was splitting a stitch. I'm not a big fan of this side for some reason. Maybe it's the ridges, but I like this one. This would be really good for embroidery on top because it's kind of flat and smooth. But I wouldn't use this thick yarn for it, though. This is ridiculous. You could use these as hot pads. They're so thick. No, the stitch I did last week was this one, $1 up. And I can quick show that one. $1 is just like Oslo, except for when you do the Russian stitches, or it's not Russian stitch, I think it's turning or something. But the stitches point this way on the back. So you always go with the one on the left. So then you go the one on the left, and then instead of going down like Oslo, you go under and off. And you actually have to take the whole thing off your thumb every time and put it back on again. So that's the one we were doing last week, but this one was Vendel. I can show it one more time and then we should probably get going because Torben's eating lasagna and now I can't stop thinking of lasagna. Björnar is here, by the way. Vinland Saga is, in my opinion, the best representation of Vikings that has ever been commercially available, apart from some weird names and some classic manga stuff. It's actually very, very good. What do you think, Karl?
It very much depends on what some classical manga stuff means.
Some classical manga stuff, it could be good. There's F1 and then you
Is
two.
it big-eyed cat girls? That's the first thought that struck me.
Now
when
you have me thinking of
somebody
Aaron
said,
Hunter's books, the Warrior Cats.
classical manga stuff, because
1, 2, and a half. Split the third one. And then you go back through the first one. That was, anyway, you have to go back to the beginning to see how I did that. But that's what we were working on today for the latecomers. So there you go, Vendel stitch. Crowns. Adopted Viking kids. I don't know what the hell I did there. Oh, that's where my split was. We have it, and Pruda says, Kaya, I've been seeing, Kaya, I've been saying the same thing. We need a Viking React series. Oh God, there's so much we could do. And they said, thank you, Karl, for explaining, by the way. Oops, there you can see our wonderful 80s furniture that God knows where we got that from. And Björnar says, exaggerated expressions, how emotions are shown, classical manga stuff. Okay, should we watch Vinland Saga and this one?
I guess we probably have to. The thing is, sooner or later somebody's going
Is
to
it
get
on
this.
Netflix or where is it?
Sooner or later somebody's going to get this right. And if I just stop watching everything because it all sucks, I'll never see the right one.
Northman is supposed to have really good clothes, though, but of course they do. They have a really good. A lot of people I know actually helped make the clothes on that one. Nilla Glasil was responsible for the historical accuracy of clothing, and Oudhild Zimmer, and yeah. Anyway, but that one I heard was a good representation of the game.
Yeah, but we haven't seen it, so
No, I haven't seen it, but
probably shouldn't be making judgments.
Nope. But the feedback that I get is the movie is whatever about the Viking Age, but the clothing is good, so I have to check. Even null-bound socks they're wearing. We are way past time though. Björnar says the Vinland Saga comics is actually even better. That's what the cartoon is based on. Next Saturday, 6:00. We'll be here, and then I'll find a stitch. We'll see if I get a lot of time. I'll get the Amani one started, or striped. Striped sound like a fun one, and then we'll see what we can annoy you with. See you next week. Bye. Thanks for playing with us.